Let's podcast after dark. I'm inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. I'm Joe Ovies. That's Joe Giglio. He is at PNC Arena on the 5th floor up in the press box after the Carolina Hurricanes. They won. They got game one against the Islanders, Joe, but this is the kind of game that the Canes are going to leave. I'm guessing the vibe in the locker room was very much glad we won, got that out of the way, but we didn't like the way that we played.
Well, it's different in the playoffs, Joe. You know, when we talk to Rod Brindamore, and, he has moments where you can't tell if they won or they lost.
That's true.
But these are the playoffs, and you need to win 16 of these, and there are no pictures on the scorecard. So while there were no style points tonight, and it was actually kind of lucky, if you're an Islanders fan, you're sitting here going, if Noah Dobson can hit an open net, now it's 2-1 at the beginning of the third period. The Islanders have the lead, and the Canes are the ones chasing the game. But that's not how puck luck works. Puck luck is real. Bracket luck is real.
Mm-hmm.
And, Freddie Andersen ends up making an incredible save after he gets saved himself by the post. And then the Canes immediately turn around with the Noesen goal and to make it 2-1 and really take control of this game. And that's where it is, Joe. You and I have seen this now, going back to other runs that the Hurricanes have had, but specifically in this run under Rod, you kind of watch this team and you go, okay, it has to work this way. It has to work a very specific way.
Yeah.
And I think the best part about today was not only did you capitalize on your breaks, but who are the ones capitalizing, pun intended, on the breaks? Evgeny Kuznetsov comes over from the Capitals. You pick him up. Everyone's excited. He scores 2 goals. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, cool. You're here. Everyone's excited that you have all this skill, but you got to produce.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you get a player like that whose name is on the Stanley Cup. You get a player like that for games like this. And tonight, they list it. They give you this handy dandy chart. And the fourth line is the one that played the best for the Carolina Hurricanes tonight. Kuznetsov with the first goal, and then Noesen, his line mate, picking up what ended up being the game winner.
I was at Q-Grass wrapping things up, announcing bands and whatnot. You left to get to PNC Arena to watch this game. And I don't know how it translated in the building, but on television, it was fairly clear that the Islanders and the way that they were playing with the icing to start things off, I think there was 9 icing calls in the first period. Second period, the Islanders managed to dictate the pace of play. Andersen makes some key saves, but I felt like the building was out of it. I thought it was a quiet building. I understand. We talked about this last week. There's a little bit of a butts clenching type situation for the fans because they know how serious this is. And we'll bring Luke DeCock in from the News and Observer, who is he's at the arena level. Joe's up at the top of the building. Luke is at the bottom of the building. So Luke DeCock joining us from the News and Observer. And I was just saying this, Luke, and you can probably add to this as well, along with Joe, who was there. It wasn't until that Freddie Andersen save in the third period where he loses his stick. He obviously wants an interference call. He does not get that. That's when the building finally woke up. Noesen scores the goal, and we finally got the sense of the Carolina Hurricanes finally dictating the play to the Islanders, where you hadn't really seen that throughout the second period and good chunk of the first period. That was the read coming off of television. I don't know how it came off in the building.
Yeah, I think it started before that. It started earlier in the third because the first 2 periods, there were a couple of things going on. One, the Hurricanes were letting the Islanders dictate the game. It was the Islander style play. I mean, the Hurricanes had, I think, 17 shots blocked through 2 periods. They weren't getting the puck through. And then they did to start the third. And then obviously there's the post and then the save and then the Shea tip and Noesen scores. And then everything sort of steamrolled from there. But I think both the crowd and the Hurricanes were having the same problem, which is when you've been playing meaningless games for a month and you're playing a team that's literally had to fight and scrap and claw for every point just to get here.
Yeah.
There is a difference in intensity. It does take a little while to ramp up to that. And it did take the Hurricanes 40 minutes. The funny thing is, this is the exact opposite of what we saw for the Hurricanes in 19, 20, 21. They were the fired up team that had to scrape and claw to get in. They were the team that went out and won the first 2 against Nashville. They were the team that went into the bubble. Well, I guess the bubble's kind of different, but the Boston series, they came out all full of piss and vinegar in 2019. The Washington series. Sorry, I'm getting all my my many
Well,
playoffs in recent
it
years.
used to be, guys. It used to be that you really could identify which playoff series we were talking about because they were few and far between. Now they
Yeah.
all run together.
They all blend together. But the point remains the same, which is just as the Hurricanes took 40 minutes to get into their game, like the fans did too, and that's fine. Like there were like some visiting writers like, hey, I haven't seen this. There doesn't seem to be as many tailgaters out there. It's like, well, no, like I heard from a lot of people who were like keeping the powder dry for round 2. I can't afford to go to 16 playoff games. I can afford to go to 7 or 8. There's always a little bit of that. That happens. And that, look, we've talked a number of times. I've talked to you guys a million times about the evolution of the Hurricanes from playoff hopeful to playoff team to Stanley Cup hopeful to Stanley Cup contender. And that happens for the team. It happens for the players. It happens for Rod Brindamore. Happens for the front office. It happens for the fans too. We're all adjusting to this new reality, and eventually the pendulum will swing back. But you saw a little of that tonight, a little slow starting, and then by the end you saw both the team and the building in the swing of things. But look, hey, that when you look at teams that are in the playoffs and have been for a month and they start slowly, who tends to make it okay? It's the goalie, and it's having Frederik Andersen from the jump.
Yeah.
From game 1, not waiting. Is Freddie going to play? When's Freddie going to be back? Like we have for the last 2 years, makes a huge difference. And I think you saw that tonight. Tonight, like if it's not Freddie, and it's like last year, and we're waiting for Freddie to come back. Hello, who knows what happens? But that's not the case. That's having Freddie makes a huge difference.
Yeah, having Freddie
it just does.
Having Freddie makes a huge difference. And it's funny, Giglio and I were talking about this, and Joe, you were kind of making fun of me because I'm thinking to myself, post-game basketball, post-game football, man, I can riff. Hockey, I'm getting that post-game. I'm not quite there yet on the post-game stuff. You're like, come on, man. You just make the checklist. Is Andrei Svechnikov going to join the playoffs? And there was elements of that. Luke and I texted about this. I'm like, well, there's the penalty. But also in the third period in particular, Svechnikov, I thought he played an overall good game, but you really saw it take to another level in that third period. That's what you need. That'll eventually pay off, even though it didn't tonight.
Yeah, and don't forget, Svechnikov and Seth Jarvis got flipped in the third. So Svechnikov is playing with much better players and not Jordan Stahl and Jordan Martin. No offense to them. And guess what happens when Seth Jarvis goes on that line? He absolutely clocks Noah Dobson into the board. So when you're on that line, and it's why Jesper Fast works so well there when he's there, as he often is in the playoffs, is you take on that personality a little bit. And I think in the first couple of periods, Svech kind of took on the personality of that line. You're playing a little safer. You're maybe a little more physical, a little less looking for your shot. And then when he went with Aho and Gensel, it was like, let the dogs loose. And look, that had to happen. Like the Hurricanes had to have a couple guys. Marty Necas, I thought, was great in the third too. When you look at the empty net goal, it's not just that he scored the empty net goal. It's that he outfought Dobson for the puck in front of their best defenseman, outfought him for the puck along the boards in front of the bench. Like Dobson's playing there potentially to make a play to save their season, because they've got to find a way back into game 1, so they're not playing from behind. And what does Marty Necas do? He wins the puck battle, scores the empty net goal. He got into it with Anders Lee. I will never understand. I tweeted this during the game. It's blowing my mind. Why the Islanders hate Marty Necas and Jack Drury so much. Like these guys aren't exactly Tom Wilson. But for some reason the Islanders seem to despise them. So.
Thickest chain this side of the Mississippi, as Seth Jarvis joked with us the other day. All right, Luke, we know you got writing to do. We appreciate you dropping by. We'll try to do this again. There's a little bit of experiment here for these home games, so we appreciate you participating in our experiment tonight for a little OG After Dark.
This is the timing. This is the window. Other than that, you guys are gonna have to do it solo.
Yeah, I think we'll be fine. All right,
see you guys
later, man. Let's look to columnist, News and Observer as we do a little OG After Dark. Anyway, Julia, like I was saying about this Svechnikov.
Let's start with the building.
Okay, let's start. Yeah, I did want to go back to that. I do want to go back to that.
Yeah, at the risk of giving Tom Dundon or Gary Bettman any ideas, this is a little bit like a college party. The later it is, the better your chances are. Yeah. Right. These early starts and we had Justin Williams Day. His jersey was retired here. It was a day game. Our friends over at Breeze Through were like, you should come through. Even Joey Doster was like, man, there's a day game tomorrow. You guys should go do a game, do a show from the Breeze Through. And this crowd is not a college football crowd. You know what I mean? Like there's obviously a cross section between State fans and Carolina fans and Canes fans. This is a later the better kind of crowd. This is a younger crowd that wants to be here. This is an ECU football kind of crowd. They want to be liquored up and later. That's what they want. And I thought the 5:00 start, the NHL's been trying to claim some new corners. You saw this during the season. They played an early game against the Leafs, and I thought even the Canes were a little bit sleepy. Rod is not quite the slave to routine that Ron Rivera was.
We ran into some listeners on Fayetteville Street today during Q-Grass, and
Yeah.
I think they were throwing some gambling talk at you, and I overheard you because I was looking over the notes. I overheard you say, "Well, it's a 5:00 start. They don't necessarily do well," and that kind of stuff proved out to be pretty true.
And these playoff games let's give the Islanders credit. A lot of people hate it when we do this during basketball season. Like, there's another team. Yes. And the Islanders play very similarly to the Canes.
Yeah.
And I would caution people who are either casual hockey fans or new to hockey or just really enjoy the playoffs. This is not Gonzaga basketball. This is not UConn women's basketball. This is not, you're the number 1 seed. You should be blowing these teams out by 30. No, that's not what playoff hockey is. So, quite frankly, I didn't love the first goal that the Islanders scored. But that's also part of playoff hockey. Obviously, Freddie acquitted himself the rest of the way. But I thought for the most part, the Hurricanes did what they wanted to do. This was a typical playoff hockey game. Then I thought in the third period, like I said, you get the luck on the Dobson shot, you get the save on Dobson, and then you have to turn around and take advantage of that opportunity. And I think that's where you see the Canes now. And we can get into a little bit about the personnel, Joe, because Luke mentioned this earlier about your best players have to be your best players. And we've said this now for however many years with Rod. The truth of the matter is the Canes are built so they're 1 through 23. And I thought you saw some of that depth tonight. And what's important for tonight is you get a game like this, and now you go the next game in game 2, and you go to Aho, you go to Gensel, you go to Jarvis, you go to Svech, and say, okay, your teammates just picked you up. Now the next game we need more from you. Now is your turn to take us and carry us a little bit. And I think you'll probably see that on Monday night.
You and I spent a lot of time during the regular season talking about that process. And I know we started this conversation with sometimes you can listen to a Rod Brindamore press conference and we can play the game. Did they win or they lose based on his comments? And the results might shock you. But when it comes to the playoffs, I'm not asking the Carolina Hurricanes to switch things up. I mean, we joked about it earlier in the week with Sarah Sivian when she dropped by. And there was a question about, all right, you're in the playoffs. You ready to flip that switch? There is no switch for the Carolina Hurricanes. They're going to play a particular way. However, that being said, and this has been a byproduct, this is the great proof of concept for the Carolina Hurricanes because, again, knock on wood, Jack Drury taking a high stick and having cotton swabs up his nose to make a big play later aside, and obviously with the Jesper Foss injury, you need your best players to then live up and cash in on the opportunities in front of them. We already talked about Freddie. I mean, I think Freddie Andersen we understand what his base level is, but Kuznetsov comes in almost as a luxury pickup during the trade deadline because everything was all Jake Gensel. What do we see in the first 5 minutes for their first power play opportunity? He absolutely cashes it in. The depth comes in the Steph Noesen situation. Steph Noesen is the depth guy who's going to get the garbage goal. I thought he was some of the best hockey being played by him, both on the screen for the Kuzi goal and then obviously where he cashed it in being in front of the net. But
I don't know if you'll be able to turn around the audio on Noesen, but I said, man, he's a classic playoff player. The Red Wings, all of those years with all of the Hall of Famers, it was always that grind line that would come through when you needed them. And Noesen, as I joked to him, hey, you can't make the whole plane out of the black box. Sometimes you just need the black box.
We're going to play that audio here in a second and then say hello to Mike Maniscalco. But to wrap my point, I want the Canes, now that they're 100%, to elevate. It's a weird balance of playing the way you've always played all season, but when the opportunity's there, you better freaking cash it because the other team can vulture that thing. And I think that's what the Islanders were trying to do. And again, Freddie Andersen stepped up. But here's that Noesen audio of you in the locker room.
A bunch of shot attempts first 2 periods, not a lot we're getting in that third period. Obviously, that changed. What worked for you guys in the third that wasn't working in terms of getting the puck through to on Varlamov?
I mean, they block shots, right? That's kind of the name of the game. And in the playoffs, everyone wants to eat pucks. So just sticking with our game, working them, going low to high, just trying to get shots through. They block quite a bit, and sometimes they go through, sometimes they don't. And we were able to pounce on opportunities.
How close were you to getting a piece of Kuzi's shot on the first goal?
Maybe, I don't know. I throw my stick anywhere, as you saw with the penalty too. So I just try to get my stick free and try to get tips. And that was a great shot by Kuzi. And so it doesn't matter how I go in, they go in.
Freddie, it took 6 games for Freddie to make his debut last year in the playoffs, but you could kind of get a sense from him tonight that he was ready to go off the hop.
He's been ready to go since he came back, so it's great to see him, thriving and doing his thing. And we're going to need him down the stretch. We're going to need both goalies in general, and we're going to need all 23 guys. So,
what is it about the playoffs that brings out the best in your game?
There's
a smile at least, like you get a pulse over here.
Yeah, there's no beating around the bush with my game. It's pretty cut and dry, and this is the time of year that you just got to will it and find a way. And it's always been my game. Sometimes it's hard to do it for 82 games during the year when you grind, but when there's a reward at the end of this, it's going to feel better.
It's why they don't make the airplane out of all of the black box.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You guys pick up Kuzi, and it was a lift, but his production may not have been there goals wise. That now in the playoffs you see his value. Another guy who seems to understand how to play in these types of games.
Yeah, I think you know his resume, you understand what he's done throughout his career, and I think we kind of forget that he didn't really play much when we picked him up, right? Like he hadn't played in 2 months or something like that. So finding his game and getting back into it. Like we had a nice little spurt with him coming right in, but it's 82 games. It's a long grind, and when you've been off for 2 months like that and you jump right back in, it's hard. I think he's fit in really well here, and all the boys love him, and I know he's happy to be here too. So to see him be able to find success and in the playoffs so far, it's one game. We got a lot more to go, and hopefully we can continue to build off that.
That was Stefan Noesen after the game. You heard from Luke DeCock there asking questions. Joe Giglio obviously asking questions. And joining us now in the East Automotive Group Hotline, Valley Sports play-by-play. He is Mike Maniscalco. Mike! We haven't done post-game in quite some time. I'm excited about this.
Well, not like this. Although I used to answer those questions, and now I'm just used to. I'll continue to ask the questions if you guys want me to.
But here's the funny thing about it. Now you don't have to deal with phone calls. We can just deal with YouTube comments. And I actually wanted to start with you because you and Tripp were talking about this on the broadcast. Aho was off. Tripp said he was playing scared. He referenced that a couple of times. Good to know we can still win when he's off, but we still need him to keep moving forward. You get that sense too from Aho? Just things were a little just discombobulated with Aho.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, and I don't want to be, super cliche and Pollyanna about it, but sometimes when you have the season that he had, you get into this game and you want to do it so bad. You want to be the man. You got to give credit to the New York Islanders. They frustrated Sebastian Aho, and then you start beating up the puck a little bit. You start getting away from the tenets of the game that has gotten you to this point of the season. That got you to 89 points. So it's not his best game. And for me, I'll go silver lining on it. If you can get a win in a playoff game with, and I will say your best player, that's Sebastian Aho, without your best player being anywhere close to his best, you take that and you run to game 2 and get ready to play, because I can pretty much assure you that he will be ready for game number 2. Now, does that mean that he's going to go out and score a hat trick or something like that? No, but I do think that he will be more of a force than what we saw here in this late afternoon start against the Islanders. But again, credit the Islanders. They frustrated that whole line. It wasn't just Sebastian Aho, but then give Rod Brindamore credit. He puts Andrei Svechnikov on that line, and it started to give him a little bit more juice in the third period. So I'll be interested to see if the Canes open up game 2 with how they closed game number 1 with the line combos.
All that time, Mike, waiting for Freddie, and then we see what he can do in that Florida series last year. Obviously, he had a long layoff this year, but in some ways, do you think it helped that he had the time off that he did?
Yeah, I think it did, and I think it did in 2 ways, Joe. I think one, he wasn't taxed with having to play 55. Not that anybody plays like 65 games anymore in goal, but he wasn't taxed with having to play 55 games in the regular season. That's one. And then 2, I think that he does have a different perspective of it now. But if you look at his numbers, forget the, life-changing experience that he had. And he did. Look, as somebody who's gone through a medical situation, I'm sorry, I'm just waving to the fabulous Shannon Hogan from MSG Sports. She is the best without a doubt. And she says, hello, guys. That being said, without going into that realm of the world, I just think that he is a guy who, when he is healthy and when he is right, his numbers are ridiculously good. And I think that since he came back from missing those 49 games, I think he just enjoys playing more instead of thinking about playing and what happens to it. And I don't want to say it's the Toronto of the world, but you talk to anybody who's ever played in that cauldron and things are a little different. But I think he does have, just go out and play. And whatever the hell happens after that happens. But I think that that save he makes on Dobson is incredible. I mean, that wins the game. And there's nothing else that I can add to that anymore. He was the difference here tonight. And if you get that out of Frederik Andersen, I seriously don't know how the Islanders can win this series if that's how Frederik Andersen's going to play in every game.
I'm going to channel my my inner Mike Greenberg. Is this series over?
No, and far from it. And I think it should be. Watch how the Islanders played those first two games. They are Noah Dobson getting absolutely robbed blind.
Yeah.
And then Kyle Palmieri, I know he's going down to the ice, but that goal goes in 99 out of 100 times, and he swats it wide. It hits the post. I was literally, and I hate that I have to admit this, because people are always like, we go inside the actor's studio. What are you thinking when I said he tucked it in? If you hear my call, I'm like, Palmieri tucks, and I'm like, well, you can't say tucks it out. That's not a thing.
Right. I was with you. I mean, I was watching the game on TV, and it made sense to me, Mike. I mean, I understood exactly what you're saying. Now, I was joking.
But no, I will say, ask me that question after game 2, if Carolina's up 2-0.
Okay.
And I will give you an answer. But right now, hell no, far from it.
He's already forgotten all of the playoff rules, Mike. No, the Canes at home with the change. Listen, the Islanders are a top-heavy team. Okay, I commend them for the way that they played tonight. Honestly, getting Diehard's kid to score a goal. I didn't even realize he was in the league anymore. I didn't even realize this kid was in the league. Right, John McClane reference right there for you. That's his son Kyle, who scored the goal for the Islanders tonight. Barzal is a menace every time he's on the ice. But when we're here in Raleigh and Rod gets the change, you see what happens, right? And we know this now since 19. They get up, then that team gets at home. Rod doesn't have the change anymore, and it becomes a little bit more of a chess match. And I think that's where the series starts to be that guy, right? It starts when the road team wins.
I don't even think it's a chess match thing. And the thing that we were talking, or at least I was trying to point out, Mike, before you jumped on, and what I saw tonight. And I guess to your point, Joe, we'll see this truly play itself out on the road when you don't have that extra change and the playoff rules and everything else. To me, beyond Freddie Andersen doing exactly what everybody has been wanting out of a goalie in game 1, to me, it's the things will eventually pay off for somebody like Svechnikov, who I thought had an excellent third period. There was a sequence there where I want to say you even referenced him as like a horse out there, where he didn't pay off with a goal, but you can see it will. Seth Jarvis laying a hit up there on the glass. Again, that kind of stuff. Basically stepping into what this is really about. Playoffs, dudes being guys, your best players being your best players. We've seen other teams do this to the Canes and not necessarily be so reliant on peppering shots, the system. Sometimes you need the individual performance. And I think that's why maybe there was a keen eye on Aho. He's been their best player all year long. He's been elevated, and I think that'll play itself out. But I saw other pieces. The key guys you want brought on were elevating their game. That'll pay off on the road.
Yeah, and to Joe Giglio's point, I think in the past, Joe, you'd be 100% correct. But I am going to be interested to see when we get to game 3, because this is the deepest that the Hurricanes have been. So I don't know how much of I want to get this guy away from that line factors in this run or in this series. Because, I'll give Patrick Waugh credit. He mixed up some lines. He put Casey Cizikas on that top line with Barzal and Horvat, and people on the island were losing their mind, and then that turned out to be the right thing. It's like when Rod Brindamore puts Jordan Martinook with a line, and people are like, what's going on here? You got to get guys to play in a certain direction, a little, north-south, or somebody to do the dirty work on a line. I want to see if the Islanders make any adjustments to their game. They didn't have J.G. Pajot, who's out with an injury, and he's a menace against the Canes and in the face-off circle as well. But, the Isles played a good game for 40 minutes. They actually played a hell of a good road game against this Canes team. Rod said it. That's one of the things when you got a team that's been playing, and we talked about it, a team that's been playing for their playoff lives for over a month, and another team that kind of knows that they're in the playoffs. And the one thing that stands out for me for Carolina, you do have to have Stefan Noesen score. It can't. You expect your stars to be stars, right? Sebastian Aho is going to score in this series, and so is Jake Gensel, and so is Seth Jarvis. It's going to happen. But the good teams, I was listening to the conversation before you guys brought me in here. It was always Chris Draper and Kirk Maltby for the Red Wings. Those were the guys. There's a reason why those guys don't buy a drink in Detroit.
No, you're right.
Because this time of year, they were the guys who were scoring big goals. So
hey, look, I mean, we can even reference Kane's history. There's a reason why he was called the secret weapon. All right. When the playoffs came around, he was going to give you something big. All right, Mike, before we say goodbye, we appreciate the time because I know you've had a long day, including the post game and all that stuff from James. How do you see the goalie rotation in this series? Will Freddie start game 2? And then with 2 days rest, do you start him again in game 3?
No, I don't think there's any way that, and I know they've had the rotation, but after that performance tonight, I don't think you go to the goalie rotation unless Frederik Andersen tells the coaching staff something that we didn't hear tonight. That performance, you have to put him back in the nets. And with the 2 days off, that'll be interesting. We'll see how game 2 plays out, because the way that the goalie rotation did work out, guys, Freddie Andersen was kind of the home goalie and Pyotr Kochetkov was the road goalie. It was just the way that the schedule worked out. But we'll see. They'll make that call after game number 2. But Frederik Andersen will be in the crease here for game 2 on Monday night, and then we'll see what happens Thursday on Long Island. Remember, on Long Island, not in Long Island, because I don't want any of us to get yelled at.
I do not expect Kochetkov to play. I don't. No. I think if he does something, I think something went horribly wrong if he plays in the playoffs. I'm just being perfectly honest with you right now.
I mean, if this is the indication of what you're going to get out of Frederik Andersen, I don't want to agree with you, but I think that is kind of what it would come down to. But, it might not be a bad thing where you get like you want to give a guy a rest depending on where the series is going to go. But we'll see after game 2.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
You could rest when you're dead, man. Now it's the money's on the table now.
Are you John Rothstein? We sleep in July.
Is that what Wilson right now? I'll never sleep. No, listen. I get it. I think they, to my point, I think they protected Freddie perfectly. And I think they salvaged. Rod hit so many right buttons this year with Kochetkov, and I apologize. Mike, you can help me with the goalie coach's name because Rod will always give the goalie coach credit for
Paul Schoenfelder.
Yeah, he'll always give Paul credit for how the rotation works, and it is truly a staff decision. So I don't mean to give Rod all of the credit, but there were so many times this year where I or someone of the George Steinbrenner, New Jersey tri-state area ilk would have jettisoned Kochetkov back to Siberia. Like, there were enough times this year where he made mistakes where I would have been like, love you, mean it, don't come back. And they were able to nurture his confidence, nurture the aggressiveness that he has that makes him so very popular with the fans. And if something were to happen to Freddie that he has to play, good. But I think now the Hurricanes have to look at this, and I think they do, just by being in that locker room for 5 minutes after the game. They're looking at this like this is not just our conference to win. This is our cup to win. And tonight we got one, right? We didn't play great, and we're going to be back here on Monday. I expect to see the fire and then the blazes on Monday night. I do.
Yeah,
I do.
I'm 100% with you on that one. 100%.
Mike.
Yeah, we did get a good mic in there, so that was good. I like it.
you want to drop by the studio Monday? I got a fancy new mic for you.
Yeah, I mean, if we get the time, if we work it out, sure. I'll figure a way by the studio. We'll get this all set. Thanks for scraping the bottom of the barrel, guys, and giving me a chance to talk post game. I appreciate it. I mean, there are others.
So
and then here I am. So I just feel seen.
Oh, you know where you can call home.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Yes,
I do.
We'll keep that M in media capitalized for M and Maniscalco and Mike. How about that? Now you know.
Yep. There you go.
All right, Mike. We'll talk to you.
Arrow and Amazon. A to Z.
Happy to be embedded here on the podcast.
Bye, Mike. Hell, Mike's even sponsored.
Yes, that's right. Our
Shout
guys
out
at
to
Roback.
Shout out to Roback, rhoback.com. Use that promo code OG20. We actually saw a dude, Fayetteville Street, earlier today during Q Guys. He was rocking that Roback hat. We love to see it. You can get a cool polo. It's polo season. I'm awaiting shorts.
Pants, man.
I'm awaiting shorts.
Woo.
It's about skies out, thighs out time. I'm awaiting these shorts. I'm very excited about this. So,
and I got in trouble from Ken. He's like, I'm wearing the hoodie. Where's your Roback merch? Where's your swag? I'm like, it's coming.
It's coming on the way. So go to roback.com. Use that promo code OG20. Speaking of Ken, he did make a comment. He knows the way to my heart outside of bourbon. Giglio's mic is fantastic. Missed the Bronson grip of death. He meant Will Brinson, but yes, I guess it was kind of like a Bronson grip of death. So
we got sober Giglio. We got an after dark. We got a good setup. I screwed up though. My nipple, the dongle that connects my camera, is in the studio. So
yeah, I'm looking at it right now. You know what?
Make sure I bring that on Monday.
Wait, are we doing?
You'll be here Monday.
Are we doing this again Monday night?
It's reps, man. That's what you told me. It's about reps. It's about making sure people know you're there. There only needs to be 16 of them, man.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was a good point. Having been blocked by John Ross, it was good to hear the cliche like that again. We'll sleep in July.
Wait a second.
Maybe that'll be our official motto. That'll be our official motto for the playoff. The playoff.
Yeah, Scott, we're here, man. Come on. Come on.
Depth showed Aho didn't have a great game. Jarvis was a little off, but we did get through with the depth. That's the grind that we need during the playoffs. Big moments are coming. Let's go, Canes. Yeah, I'm in agreement on that one.
Yeah, and again, I wouldn't panic over the way the Canes even play. You know, you get the early goal. I mean, come on now, 2 minutes into the thing, you get this goal on the power play, and to me, that was a great sign. First of all, Kuznetsov is a guy. Everyone whose name is on the cup has earned their name on the cup. And remember, Washington winning the cup, there was some like LeBron, like Cleveland, mystical powers to that one, because this is a franchise that hadn't won it. So the way that he had helped Ovechkin and was a big part of what the Capitals did in 19, right, when they won it, or 18 when they won it.
I think it was 18.
So you have a situation like that. You have a player like that, and he's been through a lot now. As Noesen had pointed out to me, he basically didn't play for 2 months before he got here. His skill is obvious, and you have a situation like that. We've seen the Hurricanes try to do this before, and their depth has been taxed. So the problem is now because Kuznetsov's on your second line instead of your fourth line with injuries, right? In previous years. So what a luxury to have a player like that, and to match him with Noesen. Again, wanting to give Rod credit for hitting the right buttons and making the right lineup decisions. Those two guys worked really well today, and it's not an accident that they had the production that they did. And you just have to tip your hat to the Islanders for the way that they played against an Aho, against the Jarvis, because those two guys have been breathing fire for what? I mean, Aho really since Christmas.
Yes,
Aho's been on a different level since Christmas. So I'm not necessarily surprised he doesn't come out tonight when we see his best, because it's hard, right? I mean, it is hard, especially because he presses. We've seen this before from him, and Joe, you put the Mulkey and you put the shuffleboard,
the Dutch
videos up.
Yeah,
you put them up and you realize this guy doesn't want to lose in anything.
No,
right? And I get it. Jordan made it all. Oh, I took it personal. I did this.
No. It has nothing to do with Jordan. It has everything to do with how these guys are wired and what they've been doing since they were young. They want to win.
And he's still young, number one.
Yeah.
He's an elite competitor, though. And it's one thing and you're seeing the progression of his career. You're seeing it. And I thought there was a different level since Christmas this year. I do think you'll see a different level in the playoffs, but I do think there is a tendency to get to these moments and try to over grip and overproduce instead of just playing your game. I suspect we see him play his game on Monday night in game 2.
All right, we'll do an after dark on Monday night. I'm going to go to PNC Arena, but I'll leave a little bit early so I can get back to the studio. Quality control. Need a little quality control here. Need a little quality control back here at the ranch.
I'll definitely be sober too. James, also, if we get the quadruple, you're right. I mean,
Oh, well, jeez.
Please don't speak it into
Don't do that.
existence. Gosh,
You're
that
only
threw me off for like a month last year.
You're only supposed to drink 2 Celsius a day. I don't think I can do multiple Celsius on a night like that just to stay awake. So we'll try to make sure that's, we'll make sure that we'll stay awake some way, somehow. That's why Ken points out that's why there's bourbon there. You're right.
That's what it's for.
That's what it's for. Might have to get into that if there's a quadruple overtime game. We shall see. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for OG After Dark. We will be back with a normal podcast on Monday. And I have been convinced to continue doing After Darks because we're just going to experiment. We're going to do one tonight, maybe one after, and then one after the series clincher. But
we can save the clincher for the breeze through.
Okay, you want to do Beer Cave ones for that?
No, just the parking lot.
We're just workshopping here.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, you're right. Maybe they'll be on the road. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Anyway, we will see y'all on Monday.